There are seasons when God works quietly, away from noise, away from applause. Those seasons are sacred, and you have lived through them. You have walked through days where obedience felt invisible, where faith looked like foolishness to others, where silence was your only companion. You prayed without evidence. You endured without applause. You trusted without proof. And there were people who watched you struggle, people who misunderstood your restraint, people who assumed your patience was weakness. They spoke conclusions over you that God never agreed with. But heaven kept a record. Every tear that fell without explanation, every night you chose integrity over shortcuts. Every time you stayed when leaving would have been easier, none of it was wasted. God does not forget faith that endures without witnesses. Now, hear this clearly. The same God who hid you is about to reveal you. Not to elevate your name, but to display His faithfulness. Not to glorify effort, but to honor obedience. This is not a blessing that sneaks in quietly while no one is looking. This is a blessing that arrives with clarity, with weight, with undeniable evidence that God Himself has stepped into your story. When God says He will bless you in front of them all, He is not speaking out of impulse. He is speaking from sovereignty. He is announcing a reversal that no human hand could orchestrate. There are moments when God blesses privately to protect you. And there are moments when God blesses publicly to vindicate truth. This is not about proving anything to people. It is about revealing something about God. There were questions spoken behind closed doors. Why are they still waiting? Why hasn't anything changed? Why would God favor someone like that? God heard every one of them. And rather than answer with arguments, God chose to answer with evidence. The blessing that is coming will speak with a language no debate can. Silence. You must understand the weight of this declaration. God does not say congratulations lightly. That word carries finality. It carries completion. It carries the authority of a promise fulfilled. When God says congratulations, He is announcing that a season of testing has reached its conclusion. He is declaring that endurance has done its work. He's proclaiming that what was delayed was not denied, it was being prepared with precision. God never rushes outcomes because He is never late. He allows time to stretch so character can deepen, so trust can mature, so humility can take root. And when the moment arrives, nothing can stop it. There were times you wondered if obedience was costing you too much. Times you questioned whether doing things God's way was leaving you behind. You watched others advance through shortcuts while you stayed still, anchored by conviction. You could have compromised and moved faster. You could have spoken differently, acted differently, aligned yourself with what was popular rather than what was right, but you didn't. And now God says, tell them congratulations, because what you kept pure is about to be rewarded openly. What you protected in secret is about to be honored in public. This blessing is not an accident of timing. It is a response to alignment. God is not impressed by performance. God responds to surrender. You surrendered when no one was watching. You chose trust when outcomes were uncertain. You believed God's word even when circumstances contradicted it. That kind of faith does not go unnoticed. It activates movement in the unseen that eventually becomes visible in the seen. Heaven moves long before earth notices. And when earth finally sees it, it feels sudden, but it was prepared slowly, carefully, deliberately. There is something deeply unsettling to people when God blesses someone they had already counted out. It challenges assumptions. It exposes shallow judgments. It forces a confrontation with the reality that God does not operate according to human metrics. God does not consult popularity. God does not need consensus. God does not follow trends. He chooses, He prepares, and He reveals. And when He reveals, there is no confusion about the source. The blessing carries His signature. You may be tempted to shrink back when the blessing comes. You may feel the urge to minimize it, to explain it away, to make it more comfortable for it. Those who doubted you, resist that urge. Humility does not require invisibility. Gratitude does not require denial. When God blesses you in front of them all, your role is not to hide it, is to stand with reverence. Let the blessing speak. Let God's faithfulness be seen. Let the evidence do the work you never had to do. Understand this, God is not elevating you to shame others. He's elevating truth. He's correcting narratives that were built on incomplete information. He is restoring honor to obedience that looked unproductive for too long. Some people will celebrate with you sincerely. Others will be quiet, confused, or uncomfortable. That reaction is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to remain aligned with the God who brought you here. There is a difference between being seen and being exposed. Exposure is what happens when something unprepared is revealed too early. But being seen is what happens when something mature is revealed at the right time. God did not expose you, He cultivated you. He waited until your roots were deep enough to handle visibility. He waited until your identity was anchored in Him, not in applause. Because public blessing without private grounding destroys people. God protects His own by preparing them thoroughly before lifting them visibly. You have been prepared in ways you may not fully recognize yet. The delays sharpened your discernment. A quiet season strengthened your hearing. The misunderstandings taught you restraint. Loneliness taught you dependence. These were not punishments, they were preparation. God was building capacity in you, capacity to steward favor without arrogance, to receive abundance without losing reverence, to be seen without being consumed by attention. When the blessing unfolds, it will not feel like chaos. It will feel like alignment clicking into place. Things that resisted you before will open without force. Doors that stayed closed despite effort will open with ease, not because you changed tactics, but because timing changed. God's timing does not require strain. When it arrives, it carries a sense of rightness that cannot be manufactured. This is why God says congratulations before you see everything fully manifested. He is inviting you to celebrate in advance, not with pride, but with trust. Celebration is an act of faith when it precedes visible evidence. It declares confidence in God's character, not in circumstances. God is teaching you to respond to His word with joy, not just to outcome, with relief. There were days you survived on nothing but trust. Days when the promise felt distant and the present felt heavy. Days when you questioned whether God remembered you at all. But remembrance was never the issue. Timing was. God sees the whole landscape. He knows what needs to be in place around you, not just within you. He knows which relationships must mature, which environments must shift, which obstacles must move quietly out of the way. A public blessing requires private orchestration across many dimensions you cannot see. When God blesses you in front of them all, it will not be a performance. It will be a revelation. People will see the result, but only God knows the process. They will see the outcome, but not the cost. They will witness the arrival, but not the endurance. And that is as it should be. God alone deserves credit for what He has done in you and through you. Do not mistake visibility for vulnerability. God is not placing you on display without protection. The same God who brings the blessing also sustains it. He does not lift and abandon. He elevates and covers. Your task is to remain attentive, to keep your heart aligned, your posture surrendered, your gratitude active. Blessing is safest when it is continually returned to God as worship. There is also a warning embedded in this moment, and it is spoken with love. Do not rush ahead of God once the door opens. Momentum can tempt you to move faster than wisdom. Favor can tempt you to trust your own judgment more than God's voice. Resist that. The same obedience that carried you through obscurity must carry you through visibility. The same listening posture that sustained you in silence must guide you in abundance. You are stepping into a season where your life becomes a testimony without you saying a word. People will draw conclusions based on what they see. Some will be inspired. Some will be challenged. Some will quietly reconsider what they thought they can. E.W. about God. Let your life speak gently but clearly. Let integrity remain your language. Let faith remain your foundation. This blessing is not the end of your journey. It is a transition into greater responsibility. God does not bless merely to comfort. He blesses to entrust. What He places in your hands is meant to be stewarded, not hoarded. It is meant to reflect His character, not inflate your identity. You are being trusted with visibility because you learn faithfulness in invisibility. There will be moments when you remember the nights you cried alone, the prayers that felt unanswered, the effort that seemed fruitless. Those memories are not meant to haunt you. They are meant to ground you. They will keep you compassionate. They will keep you patient with others who are still waiting. They will remind you that God's work is often hidden before it is revealed. When people say congratulations, receive it with grace, not as validation of your worth, but as confirmation of God's faithfulness. Let every congratulation redirect your heart upward. Let every acknowledgement deepen your humility. Let every moment of recognition become an opportunity to honor the God who carried you. Here, God is not just changing your circumstances, He is shifting your atmosphere. What surrounds you is being recalibrated to support what He is doing next. This may feel unfamiliar at first. Favor requires adjustment. Blessing requires wisdom. But you are not entering this season unprepared. God does not send people where His grace cannot sustain them. And as this unfolding continues, understand that God is not merely altering what you have, but redefining how you see. Blessing has a way of sharpening vision. It reveals motives, clarifies priorities, and exposes attachments that were once hidden. God does this not to unsettle you, but to stabilize you. A public blessing requires an inward stillness that is unshaken by reaction, praise, or scrutiny. God is drawing you into a deeper awareness that what sustains you is not what He gives, but who He is. The gift is real, but the presence is greater. The outcome is visible, but the relationship is essential. There will be moments when you feel the weight of expectation settle around you. People will assume strength means immunity. That favor removes vulnerability. But God never promised that blessing would eliminate dependence. In fact, blessing intensifies the need for closeness with Him. You will find yourself returning to prayer, not out of desperation, but out of devotion. Gratitude will become your language. Reverence will become your reflex. You will understand that the same God who opened this door is the only one who can keep it. Open in peace. Do not underestimate the quiet authority God is placing within you. This authority is not loud, not demanding, not aggressive. It is steady. It comes from alignment, not assertion. You will notice that you no longer feel the need to prove yourself. The striving fades when purpose becomes clear. God is teaching you how to rest while moving forward, how to carry responsibility without anxiety, how to walk in visibility without losing intimacy. There will be people who try to reconnect with you once the blessing becomes visible. Some will come with genuine hearts, others with curiosity, others with hidden agendas. Ask God for discernment that is gentle but firm. You are not required to reopen every door that God closed to protect you. Blessing does not obligate you to access. Wisdom is knowing when to welcome and when to guard. God's peace is not negotiable, and anything that threatens it does not deserve unchecked entry. As God establishes you in this new place, you will notice an internal shift. What once excited you may no longer satisfy you. What once felt urgent may now feel unnecessary. This is not loss, it is refinement. God is adjusting your appetites so that you crave what sustains purpose, not what distracts from it. You are being drawn into a maturity where fulfillment comes from alignment rather than accumulation. There is also a responsibility to remain teachable. Blessing can create the illusion of arrival, but God never stops shaping those He loves. Stay open, stay responsive. Let correction remain welcome. Let humility remain active. The blessing does not mean God is finished speaking. It means He trusts you to listen at a deeper level. You may notice that God begins to use your life as a mirror for others. Not through preaching, but through presence. People will observe how you respond under pressure, how you handle abundance, how you remain grounded. Your consistency will speak louder than explanations ever could. This is how God uses lives to quietly redirect hearts without force. Do not be surprised if God asks you to give in ways that stretch you. Blessing reveals capacity. It shows you what you can carry, what you can release, what you can steward. Generosity will no longer feel like sacrifice. It will feel like alignment. When you give from obedience rather than excess, it keeps your heart free. God blesses hands that remain open because open hands can receive without clenching. There will be moments when the memory of your former season returns unexpectedly. Not as pain, but as perspective. You will realize that what once felt like delay was actually protection. God withheld certain things until you could receive them without harm. Timing was mercy. Silence was strategy. Waiting was wisdom. And now, standing where you are, you will thank God not only for what He gave, but for what He refused to give too early. As the blessing becomes established, guard your inner dialogue. Do not let self-doubt creep in disguised as humility. God did not miscalculate when He chose you. He did not overlook your weaknesses. He accounted for them. He is not surprised by your humanity. He works through it. Confidence rooted in God is not arrogance. It is agreement with His word. There may be moments when the blessing feels heavier than you expected. Responsibility often does, but weight does not mean burden. God strengthens before He assigns. He equips before He expands. If He placed this before you, He placed strength within you to sustain it. Return to Him when you feel stretched. Strength is renewed in surrender, not in resistance. You are entering a season where obedience will look different than before. It may require more restraint, more listening, more intentional pauses. The pace may increase, but the posture must remain calm. God is teaching you how to move with precision, not haste. Speed without direction wastes energy. Movement guided by God multiplies impact. Remember that public blessing does not mean constant visibility. God will still draw you into quiet moments, private reflections, hidden recalibrations. Do not resist these invitations. They are not withdrawals. They are refueling. He knows when to pull you aside to preserve your depth. Honor those moments as much as you honor the visible ones. There will be opportunities that look good but are not aligned. Favor attracts options. Not all of them ordained. Learn to discern between what is possible and what is purposeful. God's will often feels narrower than opportunity, but wider than imagination. Choose alignment over expansion, peace over pressure, obedience over applause. And when the day comes that you stand fully in what God promised, let your heart remain soft. Let wonder remain alive. Familiarity can dull reverence if you are not careful. Never lose awe for what God has done. Gratitude keeps the soul awake. Worship keeps the heart anchored. This blessing is not a destination. It is a stewardship. God entrusted you with this moment because He trusted your character before He trusted your capacity. He saw how you handled little, how you responded to delay, how you remained faithful without recognition. This moment is the echo of those choices. So continue forward with courage that is calm, faith that is grounded, and joy that is steady. Let your life remain an offering, your obedience a testimony, your peace a witness. God is faithful, and what He began, He sustains. And when you hear it again, spoken softly or declared, boldly receive it with the same humility you carried through the waiting. Congratulations, not as a finish line, but as confirmation that God's word never returns empty. What He promised, He fulfilled. What He revealed, He established. And what He blesses, He keeps. And now, as the weight of this moment settles into your spirit, recognize that God is also teaching you how to stand without shrinking and without hardening. There is a balance He is forming within you, a quiet confidence that does not need permission, and a tenderness that does not disappear under pressure. This balance is rare, and it is intentional. God is shaping you to be firm without becoming rigid, visible without becoming distant, favored without becoming detached. This is the posture of someone who has learned that strength and surrender are not opposites, but companions. You will notice that your prayers begin to change. They will no longer be driven by urgency alone, but by alignment. You will find yourself asking not only for provision, but for precision. Not only for doors to open, but for clarity on which ones to walk through. God is drawing you into a deeper partnership where obedience is not reactive, but responsive. You are learning to move with Him, not ahead of Him, not behind Him, but in step. There will be moments when God invites you to pause, even while things are going well. This pause is not hesitation, it is wisdom. God knows that momentum can blur discernment if the heart is not anchored. In these pauses, He will remind you that your worth is not measured by output, and your value is not sustained by activity. Rest, when guided by God, is not retreat, it is reign. Forcement. You may also become more aware of the cost of disobedience, not through fear, but through clarity. When alignment is established, misalignment becomes uncomfortable. Choices that once seemed harmless may now feel heavy. This is not condemnation, it is sensitivity. God is sharpening your spirit so you can sense when something pulls you away from His peace. This sensitivity is protection, not restriction. As your life continues to unfold in this light, you will realize that God is not just answering old prayers. He's preparing you for prayers you have not yet learned how to pray. He's expanding your language, your vision, your capacity to believe beyond what you once thought possible. What used to feel like faith will begin to feel like foundation. What once felt risky will begin to feel rooted. This is growth that cannot be rushed and cannot be replicated. There will be times when the blessing challenges your identity. You may ask yourself who you are now, standing where you once only imagined. Let God answer that question. Do not rush to redefine yourself through roles, titles, or outcomes. Identity anchored in God does not fluctuate with seasons. You are the same person who waited, who trusted, who obeyed. The environment has changed, but the calling remains anchored in Him. You'll also learn that silence has new meaning. It is no longer emptiness, it is discernment. You will not feel compelled to respond to every opinion or justify every decision. God is T. Aching you, that peace does not require explanation. When your life aligns with His will, clarity eventually speaks for itself. Silence, when chosen wisely, becomes a language of confidence. There may be moments when the blessing feels misunderstood. People may see the result without understanding the restraint it required. Let that be. Understanding is not a prerequisite for fulfillment. God did not assign you the task of convincing. He assigned you the responsibility of obeying. Your life does not need to be defended when it is aligned. As God continues to establish what He has begun, you will sense a deeper responsibility to guard your inner life. Thoughts matter here, motives matter here. God is not just interested in what you do, but in how you do it and why. Purity of heart becomes increasingly important as influence expands. What you tolerate internally eventually shapes what you manifest externally. There will be a new kind of courage required in this season, the courage to remain soft in a world that expects hardness, the courage to stay faithful when compromise is rewarded, the courage to listen when noise is constant. This courage is not dramatic, it is disciplined. It is formed in daily choices that no one applauds but God honors. You may find that God invites you into responsibility that feels beyond your strength. When this happens, do not panic. God often reveals assignments before revealing full capacity. He does this so you learn to depend on Him rather and on confidence. Strength grows in obedience. Capacity expands in surrender. You do not need to feel ready. You need to remain willing. As time passes, you will see how carefully God protected you from arriving here too soon. Immaturity would have turned favor into pressure. Insecurity would have turned opportunity into anxiety. But God waited until your roots were deep enough to hold what your hands now carry. This is not delay. It is mercy revealed in hindsight. Let gratitude remain active, not occasional. Gratitude keeps the heart aligned and the spirit receptive. It reminds you that everything you steward is entrusted, not owned. God resists entitlement, but He honors thankfulness. When gratitude leads, pride has no room to grow. You are also learning that blessing does not eliminate opposition, it clarifies it. Resistance may come in subtler forms now: distractions, subtle compromises, misplaced priorities. Stay alert. Not anxious, but aware. God's guidance is constant when the heart remains attentive. And when uncertainty arises, as it sometimes will return to what you know, God is faithful. He does not contradict Himself. He does not abandon what He establishes. If He brought you here, He will instruct you here. If He elevated you, He will sustain you. Trust does not expire with fulfillment, it deepens. Allow joy to remain uncomplicated. Do not dilute it with fear of loss or pressure to maintain. Joy rooted in God is not fragile. It is resilient. It does not depend on end circumstances remaining perfect. It flows from knowing who holds them. As this chapter continues, remember that the greatest evidence of blessing is not what surrounds you, but what remains within you. Peace that endures, integrity that holds, faith that listens. These are the markers of a life kept by God. And in this unfolding, there will come a moment when you realize that God is not only blessing what is visible, but healing what was hidden. Some wounds were never addressed because survival required strength, not reflection. But now, in this steadier place, God gently brings those places into His light. Not to reopen them, but to restore them. Blessing creates space for healing, because fear no longer dictates your pace. God is not interested in merely advancing you. He is committed to make you whole. You may notice that your reactions begin to change. Situations that once triggered defensiveness no longer have the same power. Words that once unsettled you now pass through without attachment. This is not emotional distance. It is spiritual maturity. God is teaching you how to remain anchored when circumstances fluctuate, how to respond from truth rather than impulse. Stability becomes your testimony. There is also a quiet authority forming in how you listen. You are no longer hurried to speak or quick to conclude. God sharpens discernment by slowing the soul. You begin to hear beneath the surface, to sense when something carries peace and when it carries pressure. His awareness is not suspicion, it is stewardship. God entrusts clarity to those who honor it. As the blessing continues to unfold, you may feel a deeper reverence for timing. You will no longer rush outcomes or force results. You have seen what happens when God moves in His time. It leaves no residue of regret. Patience, once learned through hardship, now becomes wisdom practiced through choice. Waiting is no longer punishment, it is partnership. There will be seasons within This season, moments of acceleration, followed by moments of quiet reinforcement. Do not mistake the quieter days for stagnation. God often strengthens foundations while nothing appears to change. What He builds beneath the surface determines how high something can rise without collapsing. Trust the unseen work as much as you celebrate the visible. You may find that God asks you to release things that once felt essential, not because they were wrong, but because they are no longer necessary. Growth requires letting go, even of good things, to make room for what is aligned now. God never removes without intention. What He asks you to release is always replaced with something more fitting for where He is leading you. There will also be moments when gratitude overwhelms you unexpectedly, not because of what you gained, but because of what you survived. You will remember how close you came to giving up, to settling, to turning back. And in that remembrance, worship will rise naturally. Gratitude rooted in R. Remembrance keeps the heart grounded in humility. As influence increases, God will refine your inner compass. Decisions will no longer be made based on urgency or appearance, but on resonance with His peace. You will learn that not every good opportunity is God's invitation. Discernment becomes less about analysis and more about alignment. When something is from God, it settles the spirit, even if it stretches the faith. You may also experience moments of holy discomfort when success feels incomplete without significance. This is God expanding your sense of purpose. He is teaching you that fulfillment is not found in achievement alone, but in obedience that impacts beyond yourself. Purpose matures when it moves from personal victory to faithful stewardship. In this season, God will also guard you from isolation disguised as protection. While some distance is necessary, complete withdrawal is not His design. He will teach you how to remain open without being exposed, connected without being drained. Balance is learned through dependence on Him, not through rigid boundaries built up of fear. There will be days when the weight of responsibility feels heavy again. When that happens, return to stillness. God does not require you to carry tomorrow today. Grace is given daily, not in advance. When you stay present, strength remains sufficient. You will also begin to recognize how deeply God values faithfulness over spectacle. Quiet obedience continues to move heaven even when no one applauds. Public blessing never replaces private devotion. It reveals the fruit of it. Keep choosing what honors God when it costs you comfort. That choice remains sacred in every season. As time goes on, you will notice that your confidence is no longer loud. It does not announce itself. It simply stands. This confidence is born from knowing who sustains you. You no longer fear being misunderstood because your identity is no longer negotiated through approval. God's voice has become the loudest one you listen to. There may come moments when you feel led to speak less and pray more. Honor that leading. God sometimes advances His work through silence rather than declaration. Not every victory needs to be narrated. Some are meant to be lived quietly and recognized only in their fruit. In this place of blessing, temptation may appear refined rather than obvious. It may invite you to self-sufficiency, to subtle pride, to independence from prayer. Remain watchful. Dependence on God is not weakness, it is wisdom. The moment you think you no longer need Him is the moment alignment begins to drift. Let joy remain rooted, not reactive. Let peace remain intentional, not conditional. God's presence is not fragile, it is constant. When circumstances fluctuate, return inward to where He meets you consistently. That place does not change with seasons. And as you continue walking forward, understand this deeply. God did not bless you to prove a point. He blessed you to reveal His nature, faithful, precise, intentional, good. Your life is becoming a quiet declaration that God keeps His word, even when the journey is long, even when the process is hidden. So remain attentive, remain teachable, Remain anchored. Let your life continue to reflect trust rather than urgency, obedience rather than noise, reverence rather than display. God has spoken over you, and His word stands. This is not the end of the message. It is the continuation of a calling unfolding. And as you walk it out, let your spirit remain settled in this truth. What God establishes, no season can undo. What He blesses openly, He sustains faithfully. And what He leads you into, He walks with you through every step without fail. And now as this message reaches its final breath, let it settle not as an ending, but as an anchoring truth. God does not speak to excite you for a moment. He speaks to establish you for a lifetime. What has been released over you is not fragile. It is not seasonal high. It is not dependent on conditions remaining perfect. It is rooted in the unchanging nature of God Himself. And because it comes from Him, it carries permanence, intention, and divine authority. There will be days ahead when emotions fluctuate and circumstances test your steadiness. In those moments, return to what God has already declared. Do not renegotiate what heaven has settled. Faith is not proven when everything aligns easily. It is proven when you stand firm without needing reassurance. God's word over you does not require constant confirmation. It requires trust. Let your life now move at the pace of obedience, not urgency. You do not need to chase what God has already assigned. What belongs to you will recognize you in the right time. What God has ordained cannot miss you. And what is not from Him cannot sustain you. Rest in that certainty. Peace is your inheritance, not something you must earn. As you walk forward, let your spirit remain soft and your resolve remain strong. Do not allow familiarity with blessing to dull reverence. Do not allow responsibility to replace wonder. Stay aware that every step you take is still guided, still covered, still sustained. God has not finished speaking. He has simply begun revealing. And when you reflect on where you came from, do so without regret or bitterness. The past was not wasted, it was formative. Every delay shaped discernment. Every quiet season strengthened trust. Every unanswered prayer prepared you to recognize fulfillment when it arrived. Nothing was lost. Everything was woven. Carry this season with gratitude that is steady, not loud. With confidence that is rooted, not defensive. With faith that list ends more than it speaks. Your life does not need to announce God's faithfulness. It demonstrates it simply by continuing in alignment. And if ever you feel unsure, overwhelmed, or tempted to doubt, return to this truth. God does not congratulate what He cannot sustain. He does not elevate what He will not protect. He does not promise what He will not fulfill. What He has spoken over you stands beyond opinion, beyond circumstance, beyond time. So walk on grounded, aware, and unafraid. Let obedience remain your language. Let trust remain your posture. Let reverence remain your covering. God has gone before you. God walks beside you. And God remains faithful behind you, guarding what He has established. And this is how it concludes, not with noise, not with striving, but with certainty. What God has begun, He will complete. What God has blessed, He will preserve. What God has spoken, He will uphold. Congratulations, not as a momentary word, but as a lasting reality.